a very warm welcome to everybody today. And it is the first night of Hanukkah, so happy Hanukkah to everyone also. You had a sneak peek. You've seen Luke Peterson from Michigan. He is an automotive engineer, and he works for General Motors at the General Motors Technical Center in Michigan. And I believe that he has been with them for barely 2 years. So he is embarking upon his career as an automotive engineer and actually a cybersecurity engineer with General Motors. So very warm welcome to you, Luke.
Hey, thanks for introducing me, Lorna. Yeah, I'm really excited to be with you guys today and share about my experiences as an automotive engineer. The technical center sounds really important, but right now that's the desk in my bedroom. That's where I do all my work from right now.
Okay, so you're working from home like many of us, I'm assuming.
Yep.
Well, it's great to know that you can still do your job from home. Do you have a driveway filled with cars?
Yeah, right now I live with 2 roommates, and our driveway's full of GM vehicles.
Okay. So, General Motors. Now, I'm not quite sure. I know they make cars. What sort of cars do they make? And are there any particular brands?
Yeah, definitely. So General Motors doesn't actually make any cars that say General Motors on them. So the brands for GM are Chevrolet, GMC, Cadillac, and Buick are the 4 brands. So some of the ones that you might know about, so the Corvette, we build the Corvette. The Escalade is a large SUV. We also sell the Silverado and Sierra, so those are the large trucks. So those are some of the very popular vehicles that we sell at General Motors.
And which one of those would you like to drive yourself?
That's a good question. So our new Corvette, they moved from a front engine car to a mid-engine car. So they pretty much moved the engine from being in the front of the car to the middle. So that's kind of made the car a lot faster and more fun to drive. So that's the car that I would like to drive.
So you like fast cars?
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
So at home then, when you were a child, do you remember what type of toys you played with? Was it just cars?
Yeah, that's a good question. I definitely had quite a few cars when I was younger. We used to have like the little Hot Wheels track. You could build the little Hot Wheels track on the ground. The little cars would race around it. And then our neighbor next door used to work for a company that made those remote control cars. And he would bring some over and he'd let us try them out to like kind of do some product testing with them. And it was super fun to kind of drive them until they broke. So it was really fun.
Okay. And so, and you like to build things as well?
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Me and my brother were both definitely into, taking it apart to see how it works, kind of just continuing to learn. And then, hopefully after you take it apart, we could still put it back together and have it still work afterwards, but not always the case.
And I hope your father didn't let you practice on his car then in that case.
No, I haven't gotten to work on the car until recently, so.
So when you were at school then, elementary school, what was your favorite subject, Luke?
Yeah, in elementary school, I think my favorite subject was science. So I'm definitely a person that really wonders, how is that made? Like, why is the sun, why does the earth revolve around the sun? Like kind of just asking those questions. So for me, science was a way to learn about the world around me and kind of answer some of those questions for myself. And
so you were asking yourself questions about cars then and what made them work. What was it in particular, do you think, that stayed with you so that you played with cars as a child and now you're working with cars?
Yeah, that's a good question. So kind of we already talked about a little bit that I really like cars that go fast. So definitely I'm a big runner, so I like to run fast, and I like cars that go fast. So I think that was the part that really carried with me. And then into college, I worked on cars as part of a formula team. So on that team, we built a small race car, something similar to if you've ever heard of NASCAR or IndyCar or Formula One racing, which is more over in Europe. And just building that car, our entire goal was to go fast. So at GM, we have other goals with our cars because not everyone's using them on the racetrack every day. But being on that team and getting to, have design freedom to make the car as fast as possible was something that I really enjoyed while I was in college.
So what did you do to a car to make it go as fast as possible back in those days when you were just starting out to play with the design of cars?
Yeah, so in college, we were really lucky that I went to a large university, so we had a lot of funding. We pretty much said that if it had any chance of making the car go faster, we'd spend the money to try to figure out if it was going to go faster. So we were kind of looking for anything. So one of the big projects I did when I was on the team for the first time, I worked mostly on the engine, and we called it like the powertrain team. So they have something called a turbocharger, which is able to force air into your engine faster and then in effect make the engine produce more power, and then the car goes faster. So we had a car and we threw the turbocharger on, and then by the end of the season, the car was going much faster because we threw that on there. So having that idea initially, it was a good experience to throw it on there and get to see the car go a lot faster.
So was it a competition or just?
Yep.
Yes. Did you win?
Yeah, we won a couple. Yep. Depends on the competition. So.
Good. And so it sounds like you really worked through the design process. So you designed something, you built it, you tested, you checked to see if it worked. So can you tell us something about what worked when you put the turbo engine in the car and maybe what didn't work?
Yeah, definitely. So the way our team worked is we'd build a new car every year. So every year we'd go through all the different parts of the design process that Lorna just mentioned, and like go from, car on the drawing board, just us sitting around talking about it, all the way to having a finished car that we're testing every day, that we're competing with, and then continuing to improve. So with the turbocharger, we had already done enough research to know which one we needed. So a lot of the problems we had was just getting it to stay attached to the car and to package it better, because anything you have in a car that sticks out too far just makes you slower. So the more we could bring things inside the car helped to make us faster.
Okay. And so it worked then? You didn't have any problems that you needed to solve?
No, we didn't have any. We got really lucky because with turbochargers, you can, I don't know if the right way to describe it, but you kind of blow them up. If you have too much pressure in your turbocharger, it falls apart. So we ended up getting really lucky that we never had that problem, but we definitely had moments where you could hear the exhaust, it exhausting air because it was getting too much pressure.
Wow. Okay. So cars all the way. And then you got a job at General Motors. How did you manage to get your job with General Motors?
Yeah, so when I was in college, I did internships in between my years of college. So with General Motors, I got my first internship there and then kept accepting return offers because I just loved working for the company so much. So it was from those experiences as an intern that really made me want to continue to work for the company and take a full-time job working for GM.
And so have you worked in different parts of General Motors?
Yeah, at this point, I've worked all over the company. So as an intern, I started out more in kind of some of our advanced manufacturing, where we made sure that the vehicles that we designed and created, we would be able to actually build them at the end. And then I moved into one of our plants where I helped launch, if you see the new Silverado and Sierra on the road, I helped launch that vehicle in Indiana, where I owned I own the tools that build the car. So I helped design all of those tools. And that was a really good experience because with those tools, the only thing that matters is that they work. So I didn't have to follow too many design guidelines, and it was really fun to build those. And then now as a full-time engineer, I started out doing some more things related to our plant and making sure our vehicles can be manufactured. And now I work in cybersecurity at GM.
Wow. Okay. So the manufacturing plant, I'd really love to go into a manufacturing plant. sounds fascinating. Can you just describe what it looks like and sounds like and maybe smells like as well?
Yeah, definitely. One of the things I love about our manufacturing plants is that they're super high pressure, and there's always something either going wrong or going on in the plant. So if that's the lines down in this area, you got to fix the problem, and everything has a little bit of high pressure to it, which makes it really fun. So our plants have 3 main sections to them. So the first section is called body shop. So that's where the cars get put together with all of the metal. So kind of like the frame of the car and anything like your hood and your doors, that's where those all get built. Then it goes through paint shop. So before paint shop, all of the cars are the same color, just a very boring metal color. And then they go through the paint shop and they get all those fun colors you see out on the road, like bright orange, or my car right now is this really bright green color. So that's where all the cars get their paint put on them. And then the third section, where I've spent most of my time, they call it general assembly. So anything you see in the car that's not metal, that's where we put all those pieces in. So that's like your front seats, your screen that's in your car, your windows, your windshield, and all that stuff. So
how much of that is done by people? Are robots involved?
Yeah, that's a good question. So depends which part of the plant, but overall it's about half robots and half people. And the robots do a lot of the jobs that would either be very unsafe for people to do, or they would be really complicated for a human to do.
And do robots ever make mistakes?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So last summer I spent a month working in one of our plants, just working on the line and building cars. And we had a robot right before our station that would flip over the car. So it would rotate it 180 degrees, which is something that humans couldn't actually do because it's so heavy. And every once in a while we'd hear the alarms go off and I'd get a nice break since I'm building the cars, which was nice. But it was because the robot didn't set the frame down right. So someone had to come over and fix that.
Okay, so there's always a human there to back up the robot in case it makes a mistake. That's good to know. Yes. So, okay, and you mentioned cybersecurity. What is that?
Yeah, so cybersecurity has always really interested me a lot. So what cybersecurity is so you're not allowed to do certain things. So say you own a vehicle, you don't want someone who's not you to use that vehicle or to be able to access any of the information in that vehicle. So my job as a cybersecurity engineer is to stop people who are not allowed to do something from doing that. So right now, I work on the networks of our cars to stop people from being able to use those networks unless they're allowed to use them.
Wow. Okay. I can see that we've got a lot of questions coming in. So I think we will take a break from me asking the questions. And if you would like to ask a question and haven't done so, you can put your question in the chat. And then we have Mike in Michigan, who also happens to be, you might see a family resemblance because he's Luke's dad. And he is our question master today. So he's going to be asking the questions to Luke. Mike, are we ready with some questions? Can I hand it over to you?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we got a lot of really good questions already, but yeah, please keep them coming, everybody, if you think of some more. So first question we got, Luke, have you ever worked on a motorcycle?
Yeah, that's a good question. So at General Motors, we don't build motorcycles. So with my job right now, I don't do anything with motorcycles, but on the Formula team, our race car used a motorcycle engine. So we used a Honda CBR 600 engine. You can look it up online. And so I actually do have a lot of experience with motorcycle engines because we had to maintain and modify our engines for the ones that we use in our race car.
All right, excellent. All right, then we had somebody ask a pretty technical question. I was impressed with this one. They asked, do spoilers make the car go slower?
Ooh, that's a good question. Actually, so our Formula team, we use a spoiler. So a spoiler, for if you don't know, is on the back of your car, and it looks kind of like an airplane wing that sits back there and pushes air down on the car. So what they're used for is if you're in a race car and you're going around a turn really fast, that extra pushing down on the car helps the car stick to the ground and make it around the corner. So if you compare a car with a spoiler and without a spoiler, the one with the spoiler is actually slower than the one without the spoiler. But if they're racing on a course with a lot of turns, the car with the spoiler will be faster because it can go faster around the turns without losing grip on the ground.
All right, excellent, very good. All right, then a couple of questions about flying cars. So some people wondered, are there going to be flying cars? And then does GM have any plans to make flying cars?
That's a really interesting question. Right now, GM, at least I haven't heard of anything about flying cars, but that'd be really cool. But I actually have a friend who works for a company out in San Francisco that's doing air taxis, which would be like really small, like helicopter airplanes. So there are companies out there who are working to try to build something like a flying car.
All right. And we had a question kind of going to the factory when you talked about that, Luke. Someone asked, how long does it take to build a car?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So we have something in our factories called tack time. So that's the amount of time that someone has to do their job on the line, which is also the same as how long it takes for a car to roll off the end of the line. So in the truck plant I was working in, a car would roll off the end of the line every minute. So you could say that we build one truck every minute, but that one truck that rolls off the end of the line, it takes it about 20 to 30 hours for it to make it all the way through the entire plant to the end. So even though each car or truck takes 20 to 30 hours, we can build one every minute because we have so many trucks in the plant being built at the same time.
All right, excellent. Okay, then another question related to how they build the cars. Do they put gas in the car when it's in the car plant?
Yeah, that's a good question. So yes, we do that. That happens really late in the process. So I talked about body shop, paint shop, and general assembly. So very much at the end of general assembly, after there's wheels on the car, they throw gas in the car. And actually, when you get to the end of the line, there's a bunch of people who are looking at the car to make sure it's, perfect and there's no quality issues with the car. And the person at the end of the line starts the car and drives it off the line. So the car is ready to drive at the end of the line.
All right, excellent. All right, then a few questions about speed here. So first question, does a speedometer tell you how fast a car goes, the very fastest it can go?
That's a good question. So speedometers tell you what speed you're currently going in your car. So say if I'm going 70 miles an hour on the highway, my speedometer will tell me I'm going 70 miles an hour. But if you look at a lot of speedometers, you'll see that the number goes up to, say, 140 miles an hour, 160 miles an hour, which is not how fast your car can go. So I drive a very small car. It says my car can go 140 miles an hour, but my car can't go over 80 miles an hour because it's so small. So they do that to just make it look nice. It doesn't mean your car can go that fast.
All right, and then, speaking of how fast you drive, hopefully you won't get in trouble with your folks for this one. Someone asked, what's the fastest you've ever driven any car?
That's a good question. So I think it's so with our Formula team, we built a small race car, and the part of the racing I did was our acceleration runs. So pretty much that part of the race is your car is sitting there stationary, and then you just slam on the gas and see how fast you can go. So there I probably went like 90 miles an hour in our race car.
Excellent.
But that's I was wearing a helmet and I had a 5-point harness on, so I had a lot more safety features than the cars you see driving out on the road today.
All right, good answer. Okay, your mom and dad would be happy with that. Very good. All right, then one more speed question. So what's the fastest car that GM makes?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm pretty sure right now it's our new Corvette. So our Corvette just entered its 8th generation. And I talked about this a little bit in the beginning, but it's a really big deal because the Corvette moved from having the engine in front of the driver to having the engine behind the driver. So doing that moves where the weight is in the car, and it makes it a lot faster and a lot better for racing. So if you look up pictures of our new Corvette, it looks a lot more like European sports cars because of where the engine is in the car.
Okay, excellent. And we have one question coming back to the flying cars. How about hover cars? So do you think we'll ever have those someday?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I actually remembered my friend works for a company called Whisk. So they're out there in California and they build kind of like air taxis. So the way those work is they're kind of like helicopters, so they can hover in place. But I'm not sure if it's going to be more of a hover car or a flying car. That's what comes first.
All right, excellent. Then we had one more question, a different kind of question. So we talked a lot about math and science, but being able to communicate and write and talk to people is really important too. Mm-hmm. So where did you learn to do those kinds of things, and how does that help you as an engineer?
Yeah, that's a great question. So communication is super important because there's no project that I do at work that involves just me to get it done. I need to work with my teammates. I need to work with people in other groups. So a lot of that came for me from playing sports. I played all kinds of sports growing up, and then through high school and college, I ran cross country and track. And then also some of that came from, I did Boy Scouts when I was in elementary school, middle school, and high school. So there, getting team building and leadership, all of those skills really helped me today in my job.
All right, excellent. All right, and then back to a technical question. What kinds of car technology do you think will be coming in the future?
Yeah, that's a good question. So right now, General Motors owns a company called Cruise that's out in California, and they're working on building autonomous and driverless vehicles. So that's kind of the next big technology that's coming in the future, where if you've ever heard of Uber or Lyft, where you go on your phone and you request a ride, they take you in a car from A to B. In the future, that car could not have a driver and have it be an autonomous vehicle. And then the other big technology that's coming to the auto industry is electric cars. So right now you can already go buy an electric car from GM. That would be the Bolt, or that would be any vehicle that Tesla sells. And that will reduce emissions and is kind of the new big technology for the auto industry.
All right, excellent. Okay, then back to the car plant for a little bit more. So a couple people asked, where do the parts come from to build the cars? And also, where do the tools come from to put them together?
Yeah, that's a good question. So parts come from all over the world. So I couldn't answer too specifically where they come from, but they come from everywhere. For the tools that build the cars, that's what my job was when I was in the plant. So my job, I had 2 or 3 lines, and one of those built like the steering wheel and like the screen you can see in the front. And I built all the tools that they use to build the cars. So we do those more locally. So we had like 2 companies that would help us build those tools. And then from engineer input at GM and their engineer designers, they would build those tools for us, and we'd install them in the plant and then use them.
All right, excellent. All right, then we just have a couple more questions, a couple personal ones here. Mm-hmm. So how old would you say you were when you first got interested in cars?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've definitely always been interested in cars. So probably when I was like 6 or 7, but when I decided that I wanted to make cars my career, that was probably when I did the Formula team in college and getting to get that hands-on experience with what a car with a full engine and a gas engine, internal combustion is.
All right, excellent. All right, and then thinking about all the kids, we've got all different ages in the audience today. What advice would you give to kids who may be interested in growing up and building or designing cars someday? How should they get started?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the most important thing is for you to pick something that you're passionate about. If you're passionate about what you want to spend all your time on, that makes, number one, it makes work super fun, and you're a lot more likely to enjoy what you're doing and get better results because you love what you're doing. So if you love working on cars, the best way to do that is to start learning about cars online. So I actually spend a lot of time at work just reading car news to learn about what's going on in the industry. And you can also just start looking at your parents' cars and seeing like what different features and they look like. And you can, you can also go with like remote control cars. There's lots of different ways for you to get your hands on cars and learn about them.
All right, excellent. All right, there's a couple more came in quick here. One was, how long does it take until a new car is made? Maybe a question, how often do new cars come out?
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. So, like before this year, we used to say a new car, it would take about 3 years for the full process to go through. But that process has now been shortened to about 1.5 years with some of these new electric vehicles that we're producing, because we've learned how to design them faster and better than we used to in the past. So right now it's between like 1.5 years and 3 years to build a new car.
Excellent. All right, and then this one just came in twice, so I better ask this. What car would you want for Christmas if somebody would give you one?
Yeah, I would want the new Corvette for Christmas. So just having something that's super fast, I think would be really cool.
Excellent. Okay, and then back to STEAM for a second. Someone asked if you ever do any math in your job.
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, I do actually do quite a bit of math. So most of that's usually doing like working with large amounts of data. So if that's finding the average of the data I have or finding the median, using math helps me to convey or to show people what I'm looking at with my data. So that's where I use math most at work.
All right, excellent. Okay, then speaking of work, someone asked, do people at car companies ever have to work on holidays?
Yeah, that's a great question. So really the only people that work on holidays are the ones that are working in our manufacturing plants. So some of our manufacturing plants run 24 hours a day. So that doesn't leave any time during the day for us to fix things that are broken or to install new tools. So when I worked in our plants and was installing new tooling, I would have to come in on the weekends to install my tools. And I also worked the 4th of July and Labor Day that summer, just because those were the days where we were free to come in and install our new tools. But I would take like the middle of the week off because they didn't need me to come into work that day.
All right, and then related to taking breaks, do you ever get breaks during the workday if you work at a car company?
Yeah, that's a great question. So right now I work from home, so I can take a break whenever I want. So now that it's gotten a little bit colder in Michigan, I don't do this as much, but I used to just take a nice like 10 or 20 minute break, and I would just go for a nice walk outside or go sit outside, which was really nice. So yeah, as an engineer, I can take breaks whenever I want, usually.
All right, and we have one more, I guess grown-ups would call these benefits type questions, but you get food at your company.
Yeah, GM is not the best with food. I've definitely gotten food a few times at GM, but my comparison is my brother, who works for a tech company out in San Francisco, and they just get free food all the time. So not as much food as I would like.
But you get to drive cooler cars than they do out there, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
All right, then one other technical question came in. How long does it take for parts to arrive at the car plant?
Yeah, that's a good question. So it takes a while. It takes quite a while. So from say parts are coming from Mexico to our plant in the U.S. You know, we've got to go through the border and all the way over to the plant. So we have entire groups at GM who plan to make sure there are enough parts at our plant to build the number of vehicles. So that's a really challenging aspect of the business, and something that with the current state of the business, with the pandemic going on, that has been even more challenging to make sure that there are enough parts at the plant to build all of our vehicles.
All right, excellent. All right, then maybe last question. This just popped in. What car was just made? So maybe which one is the newest car that GM just came out with?
Yeah, that's a great question. So probably a car that you could actually go out and buy, that would be the new Escalade, is probably the newest car that you could go purchase right now. But the newest ones that have been announced are the Hummer, which is made by GMC, which had a big announcement during, I'm pretty sure, the Super Bowl, and then they kind of had a more recent one. So that's like, the old Hummer was a large gas guzzling vehicle, but the new one is electric. So that's one of GM's big new electric cars.
Okay, good. Oh, and then, yeah, great questions, everybody. Do we have time for a couple more, Miss Lorna? How are we doing? Oh, you're on mute, Lorna.
I'm sorry. Yes, we do have time for a couple more, but could I ask everyone to start thinking about what car would be their ideal car? What car would you like to drive? What color is it? What shape is it? What does it look like? It can be a Corvette, like a ready-made brand, or you can be completely imaginative and say whatever you'd like it to be shaped like. Maybe a candy cane or something else seasonal. Anyway, so think about that, and then we can unmute you and you can tell us, or you can put it in the chat. But yes, Mr. Mike, if you'd like to resume your questioning.
Awesome. We got a few more good ones here. So, Luke, do you like car games, like video games about cars?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, I do like playing those games. Like Mario Kart was one of my favorite games growing up, and I definitely enjoy ones where you race, even if it's not a car.
All right, very good. And have you ever built a go-kart?
Yeah, that's a good question. Our race car in college would kind of be considered a large go-kart. So I haven't specifically built a go-kart, but I've built something similar.
And had a great marketing question came in, actually. Who does the testing for the car ads that we see on TV?
Yeah, that's a great question. So Chevrolet used to have some where they would bring on random people and show their cars to them. So I think those are actually just random people. And GM goes out and finds different people that they can show new products and new features to see what they think of it. And then that helps us make decisions about the vehicles. It's a lot better for one of our customers to make a decision about the vehicle than it is for someone like me to make a decision about the vehicle.
All right, super. And then one last question so far. So when you were working at that car plant in Missouri, how many cars do you think you made the whole time you were there?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we probably made 60 trucks an hour. I was working 8 hours a day. I worked for a month, so this is a nice math problem. So I worked about 20 days that month, times 8 times 60. So, see if I can still do math. So that puts me at 480 times 20. So that's 906. So about 1,000 cars, 1,000 trucks I built at that plant.
All right, then we had a grown-up ask this one. This one's a little tougher. What makes General Motors cars better than their competitors?
Yeah, that's actually a great question. So when we're looking to the future right now, GM's motto is 0, 0, 0. So that's 0 crashes, 0 emissions, and 0 congestion. So what we as a company want to win at in the future is in the electric vehicles and the autonomous vehicle space. So we see our working with Cruise and our electric vehicles that we have coming out as the future is that's going to be our differentiator as a company.
All right, and then back to a detailed question. How many car plants are there in New York?
That's a good question. So there is a powertrain plant that is in it's in New York. I think it's Rochester. I'm not really sure what part of New York, but I'm pretty sure that's the only plant we still have in New York.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so I think they build transmissions, but I'm not completely sure.
Yep, yeah, it's car parts for sure. Yep, interesting. All right, excellent. All right, I think we're caught up on questions, Miss Lauren. I'm just seeing votes for everybody's favorite car now.
Okay, thank you, Mike, for asking those questions and fascinating answers to fascinating questions. So thank you for being so patient with the questions as well, Luke, and answering them so thoroughly. So have you all been thinking about your cars? I think Shannon is going to tell us about her car. Would you like to unmute yourself, Shannon, and tell us what is your ideal car? Maybe Shannon is not going to tell us, but we can tell you because she wrote it in the chat. Apparently Shannon wants a square car that is purple. Sounds fantastic. So, Max, would you like to unmute and tell us, Max?
So I'm thinking about a car that can fly.
Hey, good choice. Thinking ahead.
Absolutely. Does your car carry lots of people or just you?
A few people.
A few people. So it's like a flying bus or a flying taxi. In fact, you talked about those, didn't you, Luke? Wow. Okay, so Johnny, I think you had your hand up. Johnny, would you like to tell us?
I want a Bugatti.
Nice.
A Bugatti. Oh, wow. Luke, do you know what a Bugatti is?
Yeah, those are super expensive and have massive engines in their car. But that's a great choice.
Perfect choice. Okay, and Nadine, what about you?
Like millions that can fly.
Wow. $1 million RV that can fly. And what color is this?
Maybe white.
White. Wow. That sounds
Awesome, I like it.
yeah,
That'd be a great vacation.
Okay. Okay, so there's one question from Lee, which I don't think we asked. What do you think makes GM better than its competitors? So why are GM cars the very best?
Well, the easier answer is because I work there. But besides that, I talked about this a little bit before, but GM's mission is 0, 0, 0. So that's 0 crashes, 0 emissions, and 0 congestion. So emissions is what comes out of gas cars that pollutes the environment. And then congestion is when you're driving on the road and you can't drive because there's so many cars. So I really like GM's vision with those three things. And that's going to be what I think GM's differentiator in the future is selling electric cars and having autonomous driving cars to be able to reduce that congestion in the roads.
Okay, that's wonderful. Thank you very much. And all it remains for me to say now is thank you for joining us, Luke. Absolutely fascinating. I've learned a lot, and I'm sure everyone else here has learned a lot too. And thank you to all of you for joining us and making it the event that it was. Without your questions, it would have been a very different program. So thank you so much. And we will see you all again very soon in the near future for another Steam Star yet to be announced, but news will be coming very soon. Okay, so goodbye everyone, and thank you.